Hello. Today's stories come from r slash I don't work here lady. We've got four very fun stories. First up, I was the lady. So, once upon a time in my 20s, I was, shall we say, naive. I was gullible, took things literally, and just didn't really understand the way of the world. One night, I stopped at a gas station and went inside to grab a few things before paying for my gas. At the counter, I saw an attractive young policeman paying for his stuff. Now, this was 2 decades ago, long before defund the police became a thing. I routinely smiled and waved at cops and thanked them for serving and protecting. I really believed in it, you know? So, faced with an attractive young policeman, did I mention he was attractive? I thought I'd thank him for his service and maybe start up a conversation. So, looking for something to say beyond thanks, I noticed that the seams on his trousers were really wide. So, I greeted him and asked him about the seams. Wow, those seams are really wide. I've never seen seams like that. They're Velcro, ma'am. Note, in the South, any adult woman is called ma'am if you're trying to be respectful. I do not understand Yankees' anger at being called ma'am, as if it's an insult. It's literally a term of respect to an adult woman. Also, exactly what one expects to hear from a cop. Oh, is that so that you can remove them quickly in case of an emergency? I can't really think of the sort of emergency that would require you removing your pants quickly. But I guess police see all kinds of emergencies and like to be prepared for everything, right? He just looked at me, a sort of deer in the headlights look, and finally said, I'm a stripper, ma'am. The guy behind the counter laughed his head off. I was just too flummoxed to respond until he was already finished and gone. Too bad. Did I mention he was attractive? So that was my I don't work here lady story, where I was the lady. Enjoy. Oh, golly, is that embarrassing? I'm not sure who it's more embarrassing for, but I wouldn't want to be either of them at that moment. There was some gold in the comments about what OP's response could have been. Tokugo Galoshi said, when he said he was a stripper, you should have said, thank you for the service. The Railtron suggested response was, prove it. Our second story is called Beached. Loose fit, let me know if this isn't allowed. I live in a coastal tourist town. In my town, unfortunately, driving on the beach is allowed. I walk the beach nearly every day, but tend to avoid it on sunny weekends because it's like a damn highway out there, and those entitled bellends act like they have the right of way versus pedestrians. Well, I decided to walk a few miles today anyway and brave the tourists. As I made my way home, high tide was an hour away, and so in addition to parked cars everywhere, the highway of traffic weaving through the soft sand was losing ground rapidly. The first two cars I saw stuck in the sand as the tide rushed in, I walked past with a polite, oh darn look on my face as a half dozen men tried to dig, push, and tow them out. The third stuck car is where this story meets I don't work here, lady. The woman runs up to me with a shovel. Who brings a full size shovel to the beach? Not judging, just curious. I have headphones in, but she's clearly approaching me, so I silence them. I'm stuck. I need a tow, she hollers. Oh no, that's terrible, I say, shaking my head. Do you have a vehicle to tow me out with? No, sorry. You don't have a vehicle? At this, she's looking at me like I'm a toddler with frosting smeared all over my face, telling her I have no idea what happened to the cake. You don't have a car? Sorry, I shrug. I walked here. You walked here? Where's your car? As if walking to the beach was impossible. We aren't on an island, honey. At home? I've been digging for half an hour. I see you're stressed, but what's that got to do with me? Oh, wow, yeah, and high tide is almost an hour away. I need a tow. Again, not my job, and even if it were, you're kinda rude, lady, so I say, yeah, I mean, if none of the folks here can help you. There were about 8 trucks parked on the beach near us, mostly belonging to fishermen in the surf, ignoring all this. There are rescue services in town for cars stuck in the sand. I had continued walking slowly, too, and now passed her car through all this. What's the number? I don't know. You can Google it. What is the name? I don't know. I guess just Google town name and beach rescue or beach tow or something. Can't you just tow me? Nope. Well, why not? I'm stuck. I turned to her with the most innocent surprise I can muster. Oh, I don't drive on the beach. People get stuck all the time out here. It can be pretty dangerous. And with that, I clicked my music back on and walked away. I'm not required to be a good Samaritan, and without being asked to help, but rather help demanded of me, makes that a definite no. What's the axiom here? A request is always considered, but a demand is outright refused. Something like that, anyway. That lady was asking a whole lot from a total stranger after her own dum dum got her stuck. If you needed any more proof, later in the comments, OP noted the choice of wheels she picked to drive on a beach: an older Corolla. We're skipping the extra details, though, to bring two good mini stories from the comments. Allison said, the memory of the Florida vacay my parents took me on when I was 13 in the late 80s. We had a hotel within walking distance of the beach, so no need for a car. But the number of cars parked on the beach was crazy. While we were playing in the water, this car rolled right on in the ocean. Right behind it is a frantic lady shouting about her toddler and infant. As she was loading up her car to leave, she put the baby carrier on top of the car with the infant strapped in. The toddler climbed in the front seat and put the car in gear, and it rolled away from her. A bunch of men ran out to her car and got her kids, but the ocean got itself a nice car. There was no saving that thing once the tide got it. OP replied, "That is horrific. Glad the kids were okay." I've seen a few cars get pulled out in the nick of time, but nothing like that. Another local and I sat and watched a guy lose his crap at a tow guy because he refused to go waist deep in the ocean to rescue his Dodge Charger. Tow guy was trying to calmly explain to the guy that the thing was floating already and could flip and kill him. The Charger guy said he would do it, to give him the cable. Tow guy couldn't even respond before the car flipped. We felt bad for him, but both wished we had popcorn while we sat on driftwood watching it all. Our third story is a wild random Karen encounter in the alley called Pick Up This Dog Poop. Obligatory on mobile disclaimer, and any spelling mistakes are autocorrect and typing errors. So, to set the scene, I had just finished work, exhaustion threatening to take hold of my body, and me fighting with every fiber of my being to stay conscious, enough for the final push of making the drive home. I had just popped into the local supermarket and picked up some cereal and a trifle. I know, an odd combination, but I hope future historians will struggle to find an explanation for it. I was walking towards my car, the light at the end of the tunnel glinting hopefully and signaling an end to my 12-hour workday. I opted to cut down a quick side street since, outside of work, I'm antisocial and working in retail sucks the enthusiasm to deal with the general public. And then it happened. The Karen dragon appeared. Little did I know with my sleep deprived brain that this monstrosity approaching breathed hellishly with Karen fire, but alas, I was about to find out firsthand. I sidestepped a dog turd, a particularly lazy pet owner had decided to leave, and then the two words every brave retail knight dreads escaped the lips of the banshee harlot that was bearing down on me now. Excuse me. Unfortunately for me, this particular brand of crazy was unknown, even to me. Are you going to pick up that dog crap? She croaked in the raspy voice. I looked down at myself, at my cereal and trifle. Yep, I was most definitely not the designated poop shoveler she presumed me to be. What? I asked back, mystified as to how a random stranger she just accosted in the street should be responsible for cleaning up a random turd. Are you going to pick up this dog poop? She repeated emphatically. Why would I? I see. This is what my council tax goes towards: lazy workers who don't keep the streets clean. I'm going to be reporting you. And then here's where I remembered something I read on another I Don't Work Here Lady post, and it was perfect. Are you all right, dear? I asked earnestly. Do you need me to call someone to pick you up? Yes, I'm fine, Karen replied, her face screwing up in confusion. Why are you going to call someone? Because you must either be senile, have dementia, or just be eternally stupid if you think a random person who just happens to be walking in the opposite direction is there to pick up poop off the pavement. There's no need to be rude, the banshee snarled animalistically, coiling up to deliver the Karen strike. You're right. I'm sorry. I'll just ring the care home to have someone swing by in the van and meet you. I don't live in a care home. How dare you be rude to me? It was at this point I just stepped around her and continued walking. Her tirade ceased momentarily as she stared at my back in odd confusion. Apparently, This Karen was not used to being ignored and not having instant vindication for her Karening short circuited her brain. The hamster in her head had apparently shrugged and decided to bail, leaving the proverbial hamster wheel spin idly. She flapped her mouth open and shut as I threw her a cheeky wave and went on my way. So that was my harrowing ordeal. My Karen in the wild. Probably not the most scintillating tale, but one that still brings a smile to my face. Oh, Karens always be calling the kettle black. Gotta love that she called OP out for being so rude to her. She either confused them as the responsible pooping perpetrator, a dodgy premise at best considering they didn't have a dog, or they confused them as a poop cleaner, walking around in normal clothes. I'm also pretty sure that that's not actually an occupation in the UK, so I'm not really sure what the answer is here. Just a classic Karen. There were some good responses in the comments, and if you were thinking the story was written well, OP is trying to become a professional writer. A couple of responses to, "Are you going to pick up that crap?" "No, dear, help yourself." And "Should have told her finders keepers and let her have the turd for her own enjoyment." I also wouldn't be surprised if it was her dog who made the mess and she didn't want to deal with it. Lisa asked, "Are you a writer?" OP said, "I'm trying to become one. I have a couple of self published titles on Amazon and working on a third." "What are the names of the books?" OP said, "The Fractured Heartstone is the first book in the series, and The Circle of Atheniel is book 2. And now for our main story. It is a bit older, but I just had to do my own reading. It's called Karen Demands I Move 2 Cars Impounded by the Police and Meets Mr. Sparky. This story is from roughly 2013. I was an adjuster for Lizard Insurance and would go to many tow lots after car accidents and decide if a car was a total loss or send it to a body shop, as well as do the initial write up of an estimate on repair costs. The tow lot I was at this day also worked with the state police and housed their overflow storage for anything deemed evidence and on hold from release. These vehicles were kept behind a locked gate inside the already fenced gated tow yard. I was there to do an appraisal on 2 vehicles that had been involved in a minor accident. However, both were left unable to drive from the scene due to either multiple flats, lights knocked out, or windows busted. I finished the first vehicle and I've started taking photos of the second vehicle. I have headphones in and I'm listening to the album Cavalcade by the Flatliners. Seriously, check them out. Anywho, I see a woman I'd guess around 50 walk up to the police evidence lot and the gates swing open out of the corner of my eye. Not paying much attention, as the vehicles I was working with were on the same side of the lot but about 50 meters down from the evidence lot. As my back is turned to this woman, I will hereon refer to as Karen, I take the last couple of photos I need, the last being a photograph of the VIN of the vehicle, which is located where the windshield meets the hood, almost on the dash through the windscreen. Hope this makes sense. Karen, out of literally nowhere, grabs both cables to my headphones from behind and rips them out of my ears. She says, "Excuse me, why are there 2 cars in front of mine so I cannot get it out?" This lot would stack cars in 4 or 5 deep side by side and move them around with a small truck to release them. So I say, "Please don't touch me, and I don't think you should be in there, and you shouldn't be listening to music on the job anyway, or slacking off, taking pictures of other people's belongings. You're probably back here stealing." I attempt to point at the Lizard Insurance logo on my blue jacket, but Karen continues on. "Are you going to do your job, or do I need to call the police because you're refusing to give me my property? Have you went into the office at ABC Towing?" "No. I saw you here, and you need to move these cars so I can get mine and leave." As Karen opens the door and gets into the first car in the ones blocking her, I say, hey, no, you can't go in there. That is police evidence." I use my cell phone to call ABC Towing and inform them. Karen says, "If you won't move these cars, then I will. Where are the fracking keys?" So I tell her they're in the office with the employees. At this time, the manager comes running out with one of those weird smartphone slash Nextel style phones in his hand. Manager says, "Hey lady, get the hell out of there. Those cars are property of the state police." He's frantically using his Nextel to talk to someone. He sees the chain used to keep the lock closed has been cut with bolt cutters, y'all. Karen was carrying a pair of bolt cutters and had thrown them into her car when she was back at it. Manager and Karen argue back and forth. I intently listen and half pay attention as I finish my duties for work. About 8 to 10 minutes pass and 7 police cars come flying back into the lot. The manager greets the police and explains what is going on, but not after Karen attempts to scream at the police that I had stolen her car. Police tell Karen to stand over in a direction, and he points, sending one officer to wait with her. Turns out the lieutenant was on scene who was in charge of the county's police tow licenses. After getting manager's story, Lieutenant comes to me and takes mine. While I'm informing him of what happens, Karen overhears and starts yelling and attempting to approach me. The officer standing with her grabbed her by her arm. Karen yanked that arm out of the female officer's hand and shoved her, surprisingly knocking the officer down. Karen is screaming incoherently as she charges toward me. The lieutenant steps in front of me and, with his taser, hits Karen with the most beautiful sound in the world. Karen goes limp and face plants in the dirt, like gravel, of the lot and skids slightly. They immediately handcuff her. Turns out Karen had walked onto the lot carrying the bolt cutters while I was in the office talking with staff about the 2 cars I needed to adjust. She had been roaming the lot until she saw me and I happened to be near her car. Karen was charged with burglary, 2 counts of tampering with evidence, assault on a police officer, assault on me, trespassing, and resisting arrest. I know Karen did jail time, but I'm not sure how much. Years later, the tow company I now own impounded her car for being double parked. She remembered who I was and quietly paid. Whew. Why do they always double down on the crazy? When the police show up, you'd think someone acting wild would take a moment and perhaps settle down. But if they did, then where would Reddit or channels like this be? The comments had the quippy responses we all crave. Dr. H said, "Assault a police officer. You will be shocked by what happens next." King Cosmic Brownie said, "Karen used entitlement. Not very effective. Police used taser. Super effective." Arshackle said, "I love how Karens always seem to threaten or actually do call the police when they're already 3 felonies deep into the situation." Kite replied, "I really never understand that mindset. And somehow that makes them think they will be in the right. Is it because they initiated police contact?" Someone replied, "They think the police are there to enforce their will because they're entitled." If you've enjoyed the story and would like to hear more, consider liking, subscribing, and leaving a comment. Thanks, and bye for now.